Breaking news that just dropped moments ago. President Trump has signed a sweeping new travel ban in January 2026 that will dramatically affect green card holders, visa applicants, and foreign nationals trying to enter the United States. If you're currently outside the U.S. with a valid visa or green card, if you have family members abroad trying to visit or immigrate, or if you're planning international travel in the coming months, this executive order could completely disrupt your plans and put your immigration status at serious risk. This isn't speculation or rumor. This is official policy that takes effect immediately. And if you don't understand the details and take the right precautions, you could be denied entry at the airport, have your visa canceled, or even face deportation proceedings. Don't skip any part of this video because every detail I'm about to share could be the difference between entering the United States safely or being turned away at the border. Welcome back to U.S. Immigration Intel, your most trusted and reliable source for breaking immigration news, visa updates, policy changes, and everything you need to know about traveling to, living in, and working in the United States. I'm here with U.S. Immigration Intel, and today we're covering what is undoubtedly the most significant immigration development of 2026 so far. President Trump's new travel ban signed in January 2026 has sent shockwaves through the immigration community, created panic among travelers, and raised urgent questions about who is affected, what countries are on the list, whether green card holders are included, what exceptions exist, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect yourself and your family. Whether you hold a tourist visa, student visa, work visa, or even a green card, whether you're a U.S. citizen with family abroad, or whether you're planning to apply for any type of U.S. visa, this executive order affects you, and you need to understand it completely. Make sure you subscribe to U.S. Immigration Intel and smash that notification bell so you never miss critical breaking news that could impact your ability to enter or remain in the United States. Let me start by explaining exactly what this new travel ban is and how it came about. On January 15, 2026, President Trump signed an executive order titled Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States, which is actually the same title as the controversial travel bans he implemented during his first administration. This new version, however, is broader, more comprehensive, and affects significantly more people than the previous iterations. The stated justification for the travel ban is national security. The administration claims that certain countries do not adequately share information with U.S. authorities about their citizens, do not have reliable systems for vetting travelers, pose elevated terrorism risks based on intelligence assessments, or have high rates of visa overstays and immigration violations. Based on these criteria, the executive order imposes strict travel restrictions on nationals from a list of countries that has expanded from the previous travel bans. The countries currently included in the January 2026 travel ban are Iran, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, North Korea, Venezuela, and this is where it gets very significant. Several newly added countries including Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Sudan. The addition of these 5 countries is a major expansion that affects millions more people than the previous travel bans. The restrictions vary by country, but generally include suspension of immigrant visas, meaning people from these countries cannot get green cards through family sponsorship, employment, or diversity lottery, suspension or severe limitation of non-immigrant visas, including tourist visas, business visas, student visas, and temporary work visas. Enhanced vetting requirements for any applications that are processed, meaning extensive additional background checks, interviews and documentation, and indefinite delays in processing, even for applications that were already pending before the ban took effect. Now, here's the critical question that everyone is asking. Does this travel ban affect green card holders? The answer is complicated, and this is where you need to pay very careful attention. Lawful permanent residents, meaning people who already have green cards, are technically not subject to a blanket entry ban under this executive order. The language of the order specifically states that it applies to foreign nationals who are outside the United States and do not possess valid travel documents. A green card is considered a valid travel document for purposes of entering the United States. However, and this is a huge however, green card holders from the affected countries who are currently outside the United States or who travel abroad face significant risks and challenges. Customs and Border Protection officers at ports of entry have been given broad discretionary authority to conduct additional screening of green card holders from these countries. This means that even though you have a green card and technically have the right to enter the U.S., you can be detained for hours or even days at the airport for questioning and investigation. During this additional screening, CBP officers can ask you detailed questions about where you've been, who you've met with, what you've been doing, your social media activity, your political views, your religious practices, your associations with any organizations, and essentially anything they deem relevant to determining whether you pose a security threat. If CBP is not satisfied with your answers, or if they find anything they consider concerning in their databases, on your electronic devices, or in your responses, They have the authority to deny you entry, even with a valid green card. This is done through a process called expedited removal, or through placing you in removal proceedings. While you have the right to see an immigration judge eventually, you could be detained for an extended period while this process unfolds. Even if you're ultimately allowed to enter, you could be placed under additional monitoring, required to check in regularly with immigration authorities, or have restrictions placed on your ability to travel in the future. For green card holders from the affected countries, the practical advice is clear and urgent. If you are currently in the United States, do not leave unless absolutely necessary. International travel, even for emergencies, carries significant risk of being denied re-entry or facing extended detention and questioning. If you absolutely must travel abroad, consult with an experienced immigration attorney before you leave to assess your specific risks and prepare documentation to support your re-entry. Gather extensive documentation proving your ties to the United States, including employment letters, property ownership documents, tax returns, children's school enrollment, family relationships, community involvement, and anything else showing you are firmly established in the U.S. Be prepared for intensive questioning and remain calm, respectful, and honest with CBP officers. Do not lie or provide false information, as this can result in permanent inadmissibility. Consider applying for U.S. citizenship if you are eligible, which typically requires having had your green card for 5 years or 3 years if married to a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizens cannot be denied entry to the United States, so naturalization provides complete protection from these travel ban issues. Now let's talk about how this travel ban affects people who are trying to get visas or green cards. If you are a national of one of the affected countries and you are outside the United States, your ability to obtain any type of visa or green card is severely restricted or completely blocked. Immigrant visa cases that were already in process, including family-based petitions where U.S. citizens have sponsored their spouses, parents, or children, and employment-based green card applications are being placed on indefinite hold. U.S. consulates in the affected countries have suspended visa interviews and are not issuing visas except in extremely rare cases involving national interest waivers. Non-immigrant visa applications for tourism, business, study, or temporary work are also being denied in most cases. The only exceptions are for individuals who can demonstrate they qualify for a waiver. The executive order does include a waiver provision, but the criteria are extremely narrow and difficult to meet. To be granted a waiver, you must demonstrate that denying your entry would cause undue hardship to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, that your entry would be in the national interest of the United States, or that you do not pose a threat to national security. In practice, very few people are able to meet these standards. Undue hardship is interpreted very strictly. The fact that a U.S. citizen's spouse misses their foreign spouse, or that being separated from family is emotionally difficult, does not qualify as undue hardship under the government's interpretation. What might qualify is if a U.S. citizen child has a serious medical condition and needs the care of their foreign parent, or if a U.S. citizen is severely disabled and requires the assistance of their foreign family member who has specialized skills. National interest is also interpreted narrowly. It might apply to a medical researcher working on critical health issues, a person with unique expertise needed for national defense, or similar extraordinary circumstances. If you believe you might qualify for a waiver, you need to work with an immigration attorney to prepare a comprehensive application with extensive supporting documentation. These waiver applications are reviewed at the highest levels of the Department of Homeland Security and the State Department, and the approval rate has been extremely low, reportedly less than 5% of applications. Even if approved, the waiver only grants permission for that specific entry or visa, not permanent exemption from the travel ban. The entire process can take many months, meaning even if you qualify, you face significant delays. For people from affected countries who are already in the United States on non-immigrant visas, like student visas or work visas, the situation is also precarious. If you leave the United States for any reason, including going home for a family emergency, attending a wedding, or even taking a vacation, you may not be able to return, even though your visa is still technically valid. Consular officers abroad are denying visa applications and refusing to issue new visas to people from banned countries, even if they previously held valid visas. This means if you're an international student from one of these countries and you go home for winter break or summer vacation, you might not be able to come back to finish your degree. If you're on a work visa and travel abroad for business, you might not be able to return to your job. The recommendation for anyone from an affected country who is currently in the U.S. on a temporary visa is the same as for green card holders. Do not leave the United States unless absolutely necessary. Understand that if you do leave, you may not be able to return regardless of your valid visa. Consult with an immigration attorney before making any travel decisions and consider whether there are options to adjust your status to something more secure, such as applying for a green card if you're eligible through marriage, employment, or another pathway. Let's discuss the impact on U.S. citizens who have family members in the affected countries. Many Americans have spouses, parents, children, or siblings who are nationals of countries on the banned list. These U.S. citizens filed petitions to bring their family members to the United States legally, waited months or years for approval, and were on the verge of reunion when this travel ban was implemented. Now their cases are frozen indefinitely. The emotional, financial, and practical toll on these families is devastating. U.S. citizens are being forced to choose between staying in America, separated from their spouses and children, or relocating to a third country where they can be together, giving up their careers, homes, and communities in the U.S. Some are even considering renouncing their U.S. citizenship out of frustration and desperation, though this is generally not advisable without very careful consideration of the consequences. For U.S. citizens in this situation, there are limited options, but you should explore all of them. File a waiver application if you believe you meet the criteria, understanding that the chances of approval are low but not zero. Contact your congressional representatives and senators, as they have constituent services offices that can sometimes intervene in immigration cases, request information, and apply pressure on agencies to review cases. Join advocacy organizations that are fighting the travel ban legally and politically, such as the American Civil Liberties Union, the National Immigration Law Center, Muslim advocates, and others that are bringing lawsuits and lobbying for change. Document everything about your case, your family situation, and the hardship being caused, as this could be valuable if the policy changes or if you're able to pursue legal remedies. Consider temporary solutions, such as meeting your family members in third countries that aren't subject to the ban, though this is expensive and logistically challenging. Stay informed about legal challenges to the travel ban, as courts may issue injunctions or rulings that create opportunities. Speaking of legal challenges, multiple lawsuits have already been filed, challenging the January 2026 travel ban on various legal grounds. Previous versions of Trump's travel bans during his first administration went all the way to the Supreme Court, which ultimately upheld them in a controversial 5-4 decision. However, legal advocates argue that this new expanded version is different and more vulnerable to legal challenge because it includes countries like Pakistan and Nigeria that have large populations, significant diplomatic and trade relationships with the U.S., and substantial numbers of people with family ties to America. The litigation will take time, potentially months or years, to work through the court system. There may be temporary injunctions that pause implementation of parts of the ban while cases are being decided. It's important to follow these legal developments closely because they could create windows of opportunity for people to apply for visas or enter the country. Now let me address some specific scenarios and questions that many of you are probably wondering about. First, what if you have a visa interview scheduled at a U.S. consulate in one of the banned countries? If your interview is scheduled for a date after the travel ban took effect, it will almost certainly be canceled, and you will receive a notification from the consulate. You should not travel to the consulate for an interview unless you receive confirmation that it's still scheduled. Even if you attend, you will likely be told that visas cannot be issued under current policy. Keep all documentation of your case and stay in contact with the National Visa Center or the consulate for updates. Second, what if your visa was approved but not yet issued when the ban took effect? Unfortunately, approved visa applications do not guarantee that the visa will actually be issued. Consular officers have the authority to refuse issuance based on new policy directives. Many people in this situation have had their approvals revoked or placed on indefinite administrative processing. You should contact the consulate for clarification on your specific case, though you may not receive a satisfying answer. Third, what if you're from a banned country, but you've been living in a third country for many years and have permanent residence there? The travel ban is based on nationality, not country of residence. Even if you've lived in Canada, the UK, or another country for your entire adult life, if you hold citizenship of a banned country, you're subject to the restrictions. Some people in this situation have been able to obtain visas by demonstrating their long-term ties to the country where they reside, but it's not guaranteed. Fourth, what if you're a dual citizen of a banned country and a non-banned country? The travel ban allows you to use your non-banned passport to enter the United States. For example, if you're a citizen of both Pakistan and the United Kingdom, you can travel to the U.S. using your British passport without being subject to the ban. However, you must be honest on visa applications and at entry, and U.S. authorities will have records of your other nationality. Using only your non-banned passport doesn't erase your connection to the banned country, and CBP could still question you about it. Fifth, what about refugees and asylum seekers from banned countries? The executive order includes even more restrictive provisions for refugees, essentially suspending the U.S. refugee resettlement program for nationals of the banned countries. Asylum seekers who are already in the United States can still pursue their cases, but they face heightened scrutiny and skepticism. New asylum seekers attempting to enter at the border or apply for asylum from abroad face extreme difficulties. Sixth, does this affect countries not on the list? While the primary restrictions apply to the listed countries, the executive order also instructs federal agencies to review security protocols for all countries and recommend additional countries that should be added to the ban. This means the list could expand in the coming weeks and months, potentially affecting travelers from additional nations. Countries that have been mentioned as under review include Egypt, Lebanon, Bangladesh, and several others. What should you do right now to protect yourself and stay informed? First, if you're from one of the affected countries, assess your current situation honestly. Are you in the US or abroad? What visa status do you have? What are your plans? Second, consult with a qualified immigration attorney immediately if you're affected by the ban. This is not a situation where you should try to handle things on your own or rely on advice from friends or online forums. Immigration law is complex. This executive order is new and you need professional legal guidance specific to your circumstances. Third, gather and organize all your immigration documents, including passports, visas, approval notices, receipts, correspondence from USCIS or the State Department, and any other relevant paperwork. Fourth, document your ties to the United States if you're here, or your reasons for needing to come to the U.S. if you're abroad. This documentation could be critical if you need to apply for a waiver or if you're questioned at the border. Fifth, stay informed through reliable sources like U.S. Immigration Intel, where we provide regular updates on policy changes, legal challenges, implementation details, and guidance. Avoid relying on social media rumors or unverified information. Sixth, connect with advocacy organizations and support communities. You're not alone in facing these challenges. There are organizations working to help affected individuals and to fight the travel ban legally and politically. Seventh, take care of your mental and emotional health. Immigration uncertainty and family separation cause immense stress and anxiety. Seek support from counselors, religious communities, friends, or mental health professionals. Eighth, if you're a U.S. citizen with family affected by the ban, advocate loudly. Contact your elected representatives, share your story with media, participate in advocacy campaigns, and make your voice heard. Policymakers need to understand the human cost of these policies. This travel ban represents one of the most significant restrictions on immigration to the United States in modern history. It affects millions of people directly and millions more indirectly. The human stories behind the statistics are heartbreaking. Families torn apart, students unable to continue their education, workers separated from their jobs, elderly parents who may never see their U.S. citizen children again, newlyweds forced to live on different continents, people fleeing persecution who are blocked from safety. At the same time, the administration argues these measures are necessary to protect national security and that temporary hardship is justified if it prevents terrorism or other threats. Reasonable people disagree about whether this trade-off is appropriate, necessary, or effective. What is not debatable is that the travel ban is now policy. It is being enforced and people need to understand it and respond accordingly. Looking ahead, several scenarios are possible. The travel ban could be struck down by federal courts as unconstitutional or as exceeding presidential authority, similar to legal challenges that occurred during Trump's first term. The ban could be modified or narrowed in response to diplomatic pressure, economic consequences, or political considerations. Some countries could be removed from the list if they meet certain criteria set by the administration. Additional countries could be added to the list based on ongoing reviews. Congress could pass legislation to limit or overturn the ban, though this would require bipartisan support and would likely face a presidential veto. The administration could implement the ban strictly and indefinitely, making it a long-term reality that people must adapt to. Public pressure and advocacy could influence implementation, leading to more waivers being granted or more flexibility in certain cases. It's impossible to predict with certainty which scenario will unfold, which is why staying informed and prepared is essential. If you found this detailed breakdown of the January 2026 travel ban helpful, please hit that like button and share this video with anyone who needs this critical information. Immigration policies affect real people's lives, and information can make the difference between knowing your rights and making costly mistakes. Subscribe to U.S. Immigration Intel, where we're committed to bringing you breaking news, detailed analysis, and practical guidance on all immigration matters affecting people trying to come to or stay in the United States. Turn on notifications so you're immediately alerted when we publish updates on this travel ban or other urgent immigration news. Drop a comment below and let me know how this travel ban is affecting you or your family, what questions you have, or what specific situations you'd like us to address in future videos. Your comments help us understand what our community needs and help others who are in similar situations. Thank you so much for watching U.S. Immigration Intel. These are difficult and uncertain times for many people in the immigration community, but knowledge, preparation, and community support can help you navigate the challenges. Stay informed, stay connected, seek professional legal help when needed, and don't give up hope. Immigration laws and policies change. Courts intervene. Advocacy makes a difference. And situations that seem impossible today may have solutions tomorrow. Take care of yourself and your loved ones, and I'll see you very soon in the next update on U.S. Immigration Intel, where we'll continue covering this story and all the immigration news you need to know.